Hi everyone, so this is Tricky Ricky again, not so much a review this time. I just thought I'd fill you in on what's been going on in my biking life. 6 months down the line and the follow-up video that I promised has finally arrived. Apologies it's taken me so long to do this video, but I thought there's quite a few developments that I thought I would update you on, not least of which the Rockrider XC 100S has gone. It's been sold. I'll get into the reason why as this video goes on, but I think what I will say is right off the bat, it was nothing fundamentally wrong with the bike. I do stand by my original review. The bike is a very good bike and probably still the best you're going to get for the money. Certainly the $750 that I paid for it. A friend of mine actually bought the Giant Stance 2.0, I think the 2018 model, which he paid around about $1250 for it. I think that's a good bike and maybe worth a good shout if you're in the market for a bike around the £1,100–1,200 mark. However, like I said before, if you do drop on the Rockrider bike for less, it's definitely worth a punt. So why did I sell it? Basically, I found out there was a few things that over time, as my skills increased, were just kind of holding me back slightly. One of the fundamental things was the angle of the seat tube, which I didn't measure it, but it was quite slack, and I think it was probably around the 71-degree mark. I'm not sure, but coupled with the steep head tube angle, it was kind of almost like a mixture of not quite being super efficient enough climbing, whilst also not being the best descending. So as a cross-country bike, it was actually okay. It worked well on a varying kind of level of terrain. But as my skills increased, I started experimenting with it. Thought I'd actually landed on the golden formula with the bike. I actually set it up as a mullet bike, 27.5 on the back, 29 on the front. I'm going to pop a video up, an image up of that as well, so you can see what it looked like in that setup. And actually in that setup, it descended fantastically well. And it looked the business as well, actually. I also swapped all the suspension out, put Fox suspension on it. Really turned it into a very good looking, capable downhill bike. Not downhill, but descending bike. However, that really did exaggerate the slackness of the seat tube angle, which made it super inefficient at climbing. So I kind of, over time, I gradually came to the conclusion you can't change frame geometry. And really, as my skills increased, I found that the frame geometry was holding me back slightly. So what I did, I actually scoured eBay for a frame. The idea was I was going to buy a frame and actually do myself a build project. I actually bought myself a Canyon Strive frame, a 2016 model. When I got it, it was a bit tatty, it was a bit battered. It wasn't quite right. It was also the medium frame in the race geometry. It's still a little bit on the small side for me, so I'm 6 foot, so I need a large, at bare minimum I need a large. So I sold that frame straight on. However, I did actually land on this bad boy, which is actually the Vitus Escarpment. This is a 2016 frame, and it's in the 29 Pro model. Really dropped on this bike. The seller on eBay bought this bike a couple of years ago to build for himself. Subsequently ended up with a young family. The bike project went on the back burner, became less and less of a priority. Eventually he decided to sell the frame on eBay. I got the frame for £475 on eBay, and it was a brand spanker. Never been built, never been ridden, really dropped on lucky. Couple of things as well, it had the same seat tube diameter, so I was able to take my Rainier dropper post off the Rockrider and put it on here, the grips, some other bits and bobs I managed to transfer across. So actually, the build on this bike, and I'm going to get into this bike in a minute to show you, actually cost me just over £1,000. Sold the Rockrider for £500, so it was about a net spend of just over £500. And I think if when we look at the spec of it, you'll probably agree with me, it's worth a hell of a lot more than that. It's a beautiful bike. It ticks all the boxes in terms of what I'm after. So we'll look at that. The other reason I sold the Rockrider is I found I was riding it less and less because of that bad boy just there, which is actually a Canyon Neuron on e-bike. I wanted to start commuting to work, but I also wanted a bike that was going to be capable of doing something a little bit more gnarly. So as soon as I bought that, I found I just wasn't riding the Rockrider. But I also didn't just want to own an e-bike, an e-mountain bike. I wanted the e-bike for certain scenarios, and I wanted a mountain bike for other scenarios. So even though I got that, I decided to buy this frame, buy this build project. I think I've got the ideal scenario right now. I'll also do a review on that. I might touch upon it actually in this video, but I'll do a full review on that as well. But yeah, so let's have a look at the Escarpment in more detail. I think I've got some ride footage of this as well, so I'll actually put it up. Again, it's not a brilliant angle. I have got a cheap GoPro. It's not the best. I haven't quite figured out the right angle for filming the riding footage, but I'll put it up anyway, see what you think. And yeah, so let's have a look at the Escarpment. Alright guys, so this is the beast. This is the Vitus Escarpment. It was the 29 Pro. Actually, if you look at chain reactions spec of this bike, it does ship with RockShox suspension. I think it has a pike, defaults a pike on the front, and I think it's an RT on the back. I already had this suspension knocking around from various other projects I've had ongoing. So I've actually put a Fox 34 on the front and a Fox DPS on the back. My preference is Fox. I like Fox, but I also like the simple nature and the low maintenance of the grip damper on the forks. I don't really want anything like the Fit 4 or the Grip 2 damper. Whilst I can totally appreciate they're amazing to ride, they do come with much more frequent maintenance. So I've gone with simple maintenance, still a beautiful ride quality on that fork. Love the DPS. I find it gives much better mid-stroke support than RockShox. And I just find it's easy to tune and easier to just get to your liking. So what have I done with this bike? First off, I've taken the Rainier dropper post off the Rockrider and put it on here. Brought across the loam lever and the ergon grips. I did actually change the Rockrider back to its original shop spec after I'd done all the upgrades on it. So I did initially set this up with the WTB Volt saddle. I've actually subsequently changed that and gone for the ergon saddle. I just find it's a little bit better. Tyres, actually bought these. Oh, actually the hands damp in the Addict Speed Grip I did buy for the Rockrider, transferred that across. I want something with a bit more faster rolling resistance on the back, so I've gone with the knobby nick and the Addict Speed Grip on the back. Actually did loads of research on wheels on this project, and I've ended up with the DT Swiss XM421, which are a 30mm outer width, 25mm inner width, extremely light, only 1600 grams for the pair, and that's set up with the free hub and everything. So I've gone for a very lightweight set of wheels, but they're absolutely brilliant. I've also upgraded the hub drive. This came with a 350 hub, which is the ratchet drive. I've upgraded that to a 36 tooth ratchet. Also on the cassette, I've gone with the Sunrace 1046 cassette. So I've got that 10 tooth cassette. It's in an 11 speed. The reason I've got 11 speed, it's actually 142 hub spacing on the rear, so it's not boost, but it is a 12mm through axle. I've gone DT drivetrain across the board, derailleur, crankset. Also the shifter is DT. I've gone SLX brakes, a little hack on the brakes there. I don't know if you're aware of this, but you can actually take this grub screw out of the LX. It's kind of a blanking plate on there. Take it out, put some 4mm titanium bolts in there, and you can actually alter the throw adjustment on the lever. This suspension design on the Escarpment, this actual pivot point here is actually connected to the rear triangle. So as the wheel comes up, this pivot point drops down, and it's what's called a floating suspension. And it does give you a bottomless feel on the back end. It's only 135mm travel on the back, but it feels longer. It feels so much longer. It's a lovely bike to ride. The other thing with this is it does spec a 150mm travel on the front of this bike, and I have actually got a 150 travel fork there, which is a Fox 34 Rhythm. However, I found that made the front end of this bike quite light, so I've actually dropped it. I've gone for the 140 on the front just to drop the front end a little bit. When I was climbing, I felt like it was very easy to lift the front end accidentally. So by dropping that, it just makes it much more efficient to climb. And the thing that I disliked about the Rockrider was the seat tube angle. Seat tube angle on this is lovely and stiff. I think it's 74 steep. It's 74.5 degrees. More importantly, the bottom bracket is set back quite a lot. So if you look where the bottom bracket is in relation to the saddle, it gives you a much more straight-legged climbing position, which makes it far more efficient for climbing. Also, the reach on this, because of this set back bottom bracket, the reach on this bike, I think it's 440 or 450 in a size large. The Rockrider effective reach was actually 400mm, so this is 40 to 50mm longer in the effective reach, which makes it a much more comfortable bike to ride. I'm actually using a wide angle lens at the moment, so it's making this head angle look quite steep. It's actually running about 67 degrees, the head angle on that, which again, it makes it fantastic for descending. And the suspension's so supple and so active that you really feel glued to the ground as you're throwing it around the corners. No problem hitting a few jumps on this. It's a really solid feeling bike. And honestly, I'm absolutely loving it. I can't see me changing this anytime soon. So that is the Escarpment. If you want any more detailed reviews on any of those components, just let me know. Oh, actually, I'll just point out these pedals. So this is the one-up composite pedal. I've got the race face chesters on the Canyon over there, and I prefer composite pedals because they're lighter and they do glide off the rocks if you get any pedal strikes, whereas alloy pedals tend to stick and grind. I've got to say, these pedals, look, they're very thin profile, really wide platform. Absolutely love these pedals. Really nice high pins, very, very grippy. If I was to choose between these and the chesters, I would choose these all day long. And I'm actually going to change this chesters on the Canyon to put a set of these pedals on. They are absolutely brilliant. So that's a closer look at the Escarpment. I've actually got a bit of footage that I took up at Lady Canning's plantation, which is a purpose-built bike trail near here. So I'm going to pop that footage in now before we have a look at the Canyon. So I apologise, it's a bit darker up this end of the garage. As I said, this is actually the Neuron. I'm not sure if you can see that. The Neuron On, which is the 130mm travel on the back and actually 130mm travel on the front. I've over-forked this, so I've actually taken the Fox 34 off that this bike ships with, put a Fox 36 on in a 140 travel, so slightly over-forked at the front. It's a 29er front and back. I kind of wanted... I was torn between this and the Spectral. This is actually a little bit better for more rounded use, and I actually do commute on this bike, so I wanted a bike that I could commute on and that would also do the trails and the red runs. So that's why I kind of went with the 36 fork on the front. It's running a DPS on the back again. What can I say? It's a Canyon. Canyon make a brilliant bike. I'm not a fan of Canyon's carbon fibre frames, but I think their alloy frames are second to none. They know how to put a bike together. This is brilliant. I've actually got a spare battery. Canyon didn't have the integrated battery design out last year when I bought this bike. They've actually just released the Spectral and the Neuron on with the integrated battery in the down tube. Looks amazing. But I got this bike and I've got a spare battery for this, so I could just go out all day on this bike if I wanted to do that. Just pop a battery in my backpack. It's a brilliant, brilliant bike. Absolutely love it. Not really much to say about it. Same tyre setup, hands down from the front, knobby nick on the back. I do actually have a set of wheels. I don't know if you can see these. I've got a Magic Mary on a Duroc 35 there, and a hands damp on a Duroc for the back. So if I did want to set either the Escarpment up or the Canyon e-bike up for something a bit more gnarly, a bit more downhilly, I could just pop that Magic Mary on the front, pop hands down on the back. I've got much more grip. So I've kind of got a set of wheels, one for trail use, aggressive trail use, and one for more enduro type use, and I just drop the wheels out, put the wheels in according to what I'm riding. Just a little bit about this. So because I got into the mindset of actually building bikes rather than buying bikes, I dropped on this Canyon Nerve. It's a Canyon Nerve AL. Again, I got it on eBay. It was virtually brand new, not a mark on it. It's a 2016 model. So I built it up. It's in the size medium. So I've actually built it up for my girlfriend. Put a set of DMR pink pedals on there. DMR Brendog death grips. Just a few girly highlights for the girlfriend. Actually, it's a really nice bike. I bought a set of RockShox Judy silver forks. They're only 30mm stanchions, but she doesn't hit anything big. And it has the RockShox RT on the back. A set of DT Swiss 533D, which come on the 370 hub design for general trail use. I mean, these are actually rated as very strong enduro wheels. They're not the widest. They're I think at the 22mm internal width. But actually they're very good wheels and very, very tough wheels, and I just thought it'd be an ideal setup. I don't know if you can see on this video as well, I've built this as a mullet belt for her, 29 on the front, 27.5 on the back, purely because the head tube angle on the Nerve is 69 degrees, which was the same as the Rockrider, ironically. But the seat tube angle is much, much steeper. So this bike does really lend itself well to the mullet design, just to give you a bit more confidence on the downhill, on the descents. Yeah, nice little bike, nice wide saddle for her there. Not really much to say about that bike. It's a good build. I built it as a one bike. Actually, from the shop, this Canyon is a 2x system, but I've set this up as a 10-speed 1x system with a 34-tooth chainring, 1142 cassette on the back, and I've gone Shimano across the board, Dior, and Dior shifter, and Dior M6000 brakes. Very good brakes, actually. Can't fault these brakes. So yeah, they're the three bikes we've got at the moment. So my mountain bike, the Escarpment, my e-mountain bike, the Canyon Neuron On, and the Canyon Nerve AL.